Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu-alaikum. Ji ayanu, pakhair-agale, ni hao, churishumme, washmale. Ohai gonzaimas, guten morgen, hola, boyo, privyet, kaifa hal? Halishumachatore, ahlan wasar marhaba. Buna, mucho gracias, swabia, bhalli kare aaya. Hoş geldin and hi sayo khuyamora chivatto chi hal jot kali mera khairutan. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV1 and Jumma Mubarak. Ladies and gentlemen, I happen to be Shahzad Hasan Khan. With me, I'm really lucky that I've been joined by my wonderful colleague who happens to be Miss Hajra Satti. And over here at PTV World, we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your Friday morning with us. But first things first, hello Hajra, assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair. Jumma Mubarak to you and everyone who's watching out there. And I think whenever we talk about Islamabad, the weather is always the conversation starter. And whenever the conversation starter, when we talk about it, I think the cricket fever is gripping the entire nation, or has already gripped the entire nation, because ICC Champions Trophy is being held here in Pakistan. So ICC Cricket Champions Trophy 2025, South Africa to face Afghanistan today in Karachi. South Africa will face Afghanistan today in the third match of the ICC Champions Trophy 2025 at the National Stadium in Karachi. PTV Sports will telecast the match live from 2 p.m. The two teams will face each other 5 times in one-day internationals, with South Africa securing 3 wins, and Afghanistan got a victory in 2 matches. In their most recent encounter in September last year, Afghanistan triumphed in the series, winning 2-1.
So this is the first Group B match as well, and I believe that everybody will be really interested in kind of witnessing whether which team is actually going to emerge victorious. But while we are at it, ladies and gentlemen, India actually beat Bangladesh by 6 wickets in Dubai, and I mean, honestly, I think we already knew, we spoke about it yesterday, that India is actually going to thrash us by Shubman Gill with another century. And on behalf of Bangladesh, it was Sohail Herodoi, but I think it was with the bowling that they couldn't contain, and it was a target which was very much achievable as well. For Bangladesh to kind of score well was something that could have actually given them a chance to kind of stand tall, but they only were able to contribute 228 in 49.4 overs, which was actually being chased by India. So, yeah, I mean, India is a great team. Everybody needs to know about that, and the way that they play, the kind of consistency that they had with their play as well. Everybody's already know that, what their role is in their team. So if it's going to be Rohit Sharma up top, he'll make sure that, he's going to thrash the ball. Then there will be people coming and building the inning as well. There's run-up ball. There's converting ones into twos, so I think they did well. But while we are at it, at these crossroads as well, I think Pakistan kind of really need to think about what they're doing wrong. Because in addition to losing their opening match against New Zealand in the Champions Trophy, the Pakistani team also faced a fine. The International Cricket Council imposed a 5% fine on the team's match fee for failing to bowl their allotted overs in time. According to ICC regulations, Pakistan fell short by 1 over, resulting in the fine being levied on the team. The penalty reflects the ICC's policy of imposing a 5% fine for each over bowled behind the scheduled time. And even in the press conference, I've seen the skipper for Pakistan cricket team, Mohammad Rizwan, saying, we were too worried about overtime and whatnot. I mean, you shouldn't have been worried about overtime that much.
Shahzad, do you think this is a good policy to have there any, fining 5% if you are not, if you're short of
I think the fine should be 10%. These are professional athletes. I mean, how can they make such a mistake? I think that's something that everybody needs to understand. If it would have been for a reason that, somebody got injured or, there was a problem in the ground or with the field or something.
Some reasonable reason.
Yeah, but some reasonable reason. There was no reasonable reason, and they, so the over rate was slow. This is unfortunate to know, but yes, I think as Pakistanis, the only resilience that we can show is that we are glad that Champions Trophy is taking place in Pakistan.
I think, but again, like we said, that Pakistani team can give you a lots of highs and lows. But Pakistani squad has reached Dubai to play a match against India. Pakistan cricket team has arrived in Dubai ahead of their crucial ICC Champions Trophy match against India on Sunday. Led by the captain Mohammad Rizwan, the team departed from Karachi and reached Dubai. Pakistan's cricket team will begin their practice sessions from today. Pakistan is all set to face the arch-rival India on Sunday in a high-stake match. The victory is vital for Pakistan to stay in the race for semi-finals. PTV Sports HD is telecasting the mega event live. And again, fingers crossed, and I think somehow people do have some sort of an idea what this match will yield the result. But again, you know, we are hoping for
I mean,
the
so it's really simple. You know, for Pakistan, it has always been like कि यार जब हम इससे जीत जाएंगे तो हम उससे हार जाएंगे, उससे हार जाएंगे तो इससे जीत जाएंगे और इस तरह हम पहुंच जाएंगे. But now imagine that I do believe that it's going to be a do and die situation for Pakistan in Dubai against India, because the first ousting against New Zealand we have lost.
Okay.
Now imagine that in a group there are only 4 teams, which means that you will be playing 3 matches, right?
Right.
So if you do not win your second match, because you've already lost the first one, so I don't think that there will be chances for Pakistan to kind of qualify for the semis of the ICC Champions Trophy. And this is a trophy which you're hosting. It will raise a lot of question marks on people. We really need to do well. The pressure is for real. So I think this Sunday is going to be a great Sunday, filled with anxiety, filled with happiness, filled with highs and lows, the crests and troughs and whatnot. So yeah, I don't know what to say, but yes, I think this unfortunate news which came in.
Right.
So Fakhar Zaman, who happens to be our all-time favorite opener for Pakistan cricket team, is unfortunately out of ICC Champions Trophy because of his injury, and now Imam Ulak is actually replacing him. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed. You can't say anything about that.
So Shahzad, we were having this analysis of the cricket, and I think our worthy guest yesterday mentioned the fact that, you know, we were not playing as a team, we are playing as an individuals, right? And we are witnessing the absence of the team spirit in a in a team, right? I don't know how much of this is true, because you are really passionate about the sports, and I can see it dripping from your eyes, the emotions coming out, because you feel you feel great about you know, or feel greatly about, you know, why Pakistani team is not doing well, because cricket is an emotions and we are all very closely tied to it. But in order to unfold this conversation about how the Bangladesh versus the the India match went.
Yeah,
right?
we will, you know, so obviously, Hajra, I'm going to wrap it up for people, and you know what I'm going to say is over here that Bangladesh, you know, if they were batting first, they really, this time around, you know, it's all about modern day cricket. In one day, you really need to score 300 plus, you know, to make sure that it's going to be difficult for a team like India to chase. I think there's no other sum up for that. You know, rather than going into minute details, we can certainly do that. But I think India has always been on top of their chasing game as well. They always make sure that they identify their roles. And for India to kind of seal this victory, it was very simple and very easy for them. Bangladesh, given if it was their home conditions, they would have made difficult for India. But while we are, you know, over here at PTV World, and certainly, you know, we are a Pakistani team. Me, Hajra, you know, our producers, our people in the MCR, everybody contributes, and we always make sure that we talk about issues which are very relevant, which are pertinent, and we really need to kind of highlight them so that there will be more attention by the government and the private sector, so that we can do well.
Right, and now we will move on to another segment, and that is a very important segment, and the conversation will focus on the children who are kept in the prisons and the juvenile education system, and how to make sure that they are also being given the very vital organ that I would like to say of this essential social building block of the life, that is the education, because after they come out from the prisons, they have to survive, and not just survive, they have to thrive in this environment, and how to make sure that they become a responsible citizens of any society. So in order to unfold this conversation, we are very glad that we have been joined by ADEELA Ahmed Shafi. She is the professor of the Education Youth Justice, that too from the University of the Gloucestershire. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Walaikum salam. Thank you very much for having me.
Right, ADEELA, so let's unfold this conversation. You know, what prompted you to go into this particular field and focus on this particular area?
Well, I was interested in international education, which is where a lot of my work was initially focused. However, I felt it was not appropriate to go to other countries and say your education system should be like this or like that until you've got your own house in order. And I spent some time in politics, and I was exposed to prisons and what happens in juvenile justice areas, and I recognized that education in that area became incredibly important for me, because I think if you can educate the most vulnerable in your society, then actually you'll do okay for the rest of them too.
Exactly, and we will certainly provide them with an ecosystem where they can still come out and survive and be a better person, I think, and that's exactly what is essential. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out excerpts from your article. You know, it's a wonderful article that you've written. The data actually kind of dates back to 2015, and probably in days to come we'll be able to retrieve more data. So there's an estimated 1700 to 2000 children in Pakistan jails, but nobody knows the true figure. As many as 89% are there without trial, and largely because they cannot afford nor have access to lawyers of their fee. Let's get started with this.
Yeah, so that's the biggest problem really, is not actually knowing how many children are in the jails in Pakistan. So the first thing really is to know that, and then of course to consider how to provide an education that is suitable for them given the circumstances that they are within. And as you already mentioned, many of the children who end up in prison are from families of limited means, are often from ethnic minorities, and have little access to lawyers or other form of justice, and that's part of the reason why they are there. So one of the key things that I think we need to do here in Pakistan, which would be useful, is raising awareness, and that's one of the key things that I'm doing. Most of my research is focused on the UK and Europe. But I was interested in coming to Pakistan and doing some work here. There is some work going on, but I think it needs some elevating in terms of priorities and
But now education
profile.
becomes secondary over here. Imagine that if 18, and this data dates back to 2015, but imagine if, according to this data in 2015, 89% of children are there without a trial. And God knows they might still be there as well. There are 4 juvenile jails in the country. And I don't know how the conditions been. Why don't you take us through?
The conditions are limited because resources are limited. It's not high on the priority list for issues to be resolved in Pakistan. Often, that's not unusual in Pakistan, I have to say. In many countries across the world, juvenile justice or youth justice isn't high on the priority list for anything, actually. And you'd be surprised in even Western countries that isn't the case. However, because we have in Pakistan a juvenile justice system that is very much in its infancy, actually the opportunities also are there because you are less limited by historical factors or structures that have been there for a long time that stop you from growing and doing things in a more modern and innovative way. So actually the opportunities are there to have a juvenile justice system that is more modern, innovative and reflective of what we would expect in modern Pakistan.
Absolutely. And ADEELA, now let's carry forward our conversation. And whenever we talk about the juvenile justice system, obviously I think when we are talking about giving education to those kids, prisoners, or the prisoners who are juveniles, the one thing that stands in the way is the taboo that is specifically revolve around their personality or their identity. And whenever they're released back into the society, the integration is one of the very vital aspects, because they lose their self-esteem, the respect is not given to them because they've been into the jail, right, and society does not sort of accept their existence. So how do you think we can break that taboo and make sure that they're also a productive part of the citizen, because they have served their jail term, right, and now they've come back to the society or back to their life? And how can we make sure that that integration or that transition is more smoother?
And it pretty much goes out for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so one way that's being done, because the stigma is also the case in the UK and other countries as well, so that's not unique to Pakistan. So one way in which we are doing that in England and Wales is taking the child first approach. And this is a framework really, which we call the ABCD, which you start off with treat them as children. So first of all, you treat them, they are children, you work with them, and you see them as a child first. So when we think of children, we think of education.
Yep.
You think of them being in school. So if you reframe how you think about children and children in prison, so rather than seeing them as an offender, you see them as a child, that really changes your mindset and your approach for how you do it.
Exactly. And I think over here I would love to kind of, remind everybody how Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to always reiterate that Allah ko jo hai wo gunah se jo hai wo masla hai, wo insan se masla nahi hai. So I think everybody needs to kind of understand that. And in addition to this, I would, because in the last, I think 20 years or 25 years, Pakistan, where you spoke about opportunities, Pakistan did work towards that. The government, there was JJSO, the Juvenile Judicial Ordinance, and then it couldn't unfortunately work because now provinces look after each other as well. And then there were some laws which were contradictory. So how do you think that, we can actually have a national framework which will actually provide access to quality you know, at this point of time, education at least to the juvenile prisoners?
Well, I think the good news here in Pakistan is that actually you have got the legal framework.
Yeah.
And that's a starting point. So that's, and you've also...
We do have all sorts of legal frameworks.
You do,
but
absolutely.
The implementation of those frameworks is an issue.
And absolutely, and that's the same thing with this situation as well, is the implementation. But even behind the implementation is the mindset and the thinking behind this. Is it a priority, and should it be a priority?
Yeah.
And that requires political will, it requires societal will and moral will, actually. That is it okay for us to have children languishing in prisons without trial? And as soon as we turn our attention to that, because one of the biggest problems is lack of attention to this, which is why I'm here to raise awareness and work with others to do that, is once you see this, you can't unsee it.
Absolutely.
And so therefore that puts the focus of attention on there.
And I think one of the important aspects that we also need to discuss is because we are talking about the children who are in the jails, and they're not jailed in terms of their any offense, but the children who are living with their mother who are criminals and who have been sentenced in the jail, right? Because obviously they do need their moms. So how can we make sure that they're also integrated into the society and given all of these opportunities? Because when you are in the jail, obviously you are not provided all the leverages or all the successful ladder to a society as a respectable person that can get in a normal setting or in a non-jail setting, I would say. So how do you think we can approach this issue for them?
Well, this is one of the big sort of societal issues that we have, isn't it? If the mother commits an offence and she has to pay for that, and then there's a child, which is her responsibility and duty, and you don't want to morally separate a mother and a child, so what do? The kind of obvious thing is you keep the mother and child together.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
However, that has these problems that you just outlined. So once again, if you change your mindset and recognize that that child is a child first, and there are also duties and obligations towards that child as well as towards society and punishment for offences, that once again changes how you structure all of this.
Absolutely.
And therefore the focus becomes, okay, if there's a mother with a child, what do we do with the child? At the moment, all we do is we say we're doing the best by keeping the child with the mother.
Yeah,
that is not that.
But that is
yeah.
the environment. And one of the things, I was at a lecture on this very issue in Quaid-e-Azam University earlier this week, and I asked students, and I said, what do you think? Why do you think a child offends? And the responses varied from society, external issues. None of it related to the child themselves. So even a child who offends, society will admit that it's not the child's fault. So if we are saying all those things and yet we still put our children in prison with their mothers or on their own offences, that is problematic. And I think the biggest thing is to think about this, consider this as something, and I think that's one of the, once we start thinking about something, you can solve it.
And
at the moment, there's not much thinking.
And very quickly, before one last question before we wrap up this segment, ADEELA, I would like you to please highlight, what sort of multi-pronged approach you are highlighting here in terms of the awareness. Is it just going and talking about it, or is it some sort of action on the ground? How can we also contribute
and
towards
recently
this
you were even rewarded with an award, I think probably somewhere in Spain as well. Please take us through about that as well.
Yeah, this was an award by the International Juvenile Justice Observatory, and it was an award for research and for bringing awareness and research in Europe on the issue of education for juvenile offenders, which is, as I said earlier on, not on the radar of many governments or many countries. So it was for that. And one of the things, in answer to your question, Hajra, is what do we want to do? So the first thing is raising awareness. The second thing I really want to do is I want to do some research so that we can find out more with Pakistanis to find out more what is happening so that any interventions are tailored to the Pakistani context and what is required here.
And I think we cannot deny the importance of statistics whenever you are making or formulating any sort of policy. But thank you so much for coming here, for shedding light on this very important aspect, that is the juvenile justice. And in Pakistan, if we want to attain or achieve the social equality, social justice, I think this is one of the very important pillars on which we need to work on.
And in last 13 years, I think this is for the very first time that we have actually discussed this topic. So thank you so much for raising awareness, for sharing, this very idea with us, for these articles that you've written for us. And inshallah, in days to come, this public-private partnership will do well. And we hope that that this Pakistani team is doing wonderfully well.
I think Shahzad is really, really grieved about it, but I think that's
Yeah, I'm
a
sad.
very worried concern. But Shahzad, there's a very interesting squirrel,
Yeah.
and the squirrel is in the town. So the legacy of the Twiggy, the name of the squirrel, the world famous water skiing squirrel, lives on. Rescued as a baby in 1978, Twiggy learned to water ski with her owners, Chuck and Lowe and Best, and became a media sensation. She traveled the world, appeared in numerous TV shows and films, and captivated audiences through her performances. After Chuck's passing, Lou Ann carried on Twiggy's legacy for many years, but now it's her son who continues to train and showcase new squirrels, keeping Twiggy's spirit alive.
I don't know. I don't know if they agree with nepotism or not, but I believe it's nepotism in the world of squirrels, ladies and gentlemen. But imagine, as the technology advances, the researchers from University of Chicago have actually developed a data storage method fitting terabytes of data into 1 crystal cube. Wow, I don't know where this world is headed. Published in Nanophotonics, the study uses tiny imperfections in the crystal and special metal ions to store information surpassing traditional storage limits. Wow, so we certainly do not need any 1 terabyte hard drive and all of that.
It's very scary at the same time, very awe-inducing, right? In the awe of what the technology, where the technology is going, yani so much information can come in such a small sort of the chip. But Shahzad, I think now we want to move towards another important aspect, and I'm pretty sure you might have experienced the same sort of sensations or the feelings or the emotions because you've moved away from your hometown, from Islamabad to Karachi, right? And migrating or moving away brings all sorts of different changes. It's not just the emotional changes, it also the physical changes that accompanies with that. But a lot of people who migrate away from their hometowns, from their homelands, from their countries, it's not just the migration away from the city, one city to another city, it is from the one country to another country where you are experiencing different geography, different culture, different weather, different environment.
Everything's different.
Yes, everything is changing. And that is accompanied by a migratory grief. So what is that migratory grief? Because it reflects on the multiplicity and the intersectionality of a lot of different ideas, and that is hinged around the one concept, that is the grief of moving away. So how to recuperate with that, how to deal with that, how to navigate that, because it is an intangible sort of a thing, a sense of loss, a sense of disbelonging or belonging or whatever you call it, and a loss of identity, essential identity.
Exactly. And Hajra, in addition to this, when you're away from home, there comes a day when your brain is actually out of control, and that actually adds to your grief because you're missing your parents too much, or your wife, or your children, and then you cannot go back and see them or hug them or feel them. There's no tangibility of emotion, so to kind of discuss all of this, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined by a blogger. She happens to be Miss MAHVISH AHMED. Hello MAHVISH, assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you feeling today?
Good morning. Your enthusiastic wishes have woken me up a little bit more.
That's wonderful, MAHVISH, and I'm pretty sure you've also migrated from Pakistan to a different country. You've written a book and you've explained about it. And in the modern lexicon, it is called the cultural bereavement, because the sense of loss from moving from one culture to another culture. How was this entire process for you? How did you navigate that migratory grief?
I'm really grateful that you have asked me this question, and this question has been asked to me by my home country, from someone from my home country, because I feel that we are dealing as an economy, as a society, with so many problems, and we have such a large amount of brain drain, and every month so many Pakistanis are leaving, and so many are wanting to leave, that there's an impression that when you leave a country which is grappling with so many economic problems, everything becomes rosy. And as soon as you step out of the country, all your problems are solved and everything is just great. And every time back home, I tell somebody that it's really hard to build a new life in a new country. People say, what problems do you have? The problems that exist are for us to deal with. Everything is sorted for you because you've moved to a first world country. But as you mentioned, moving away from your city and from your country takes a very emotional toll. And the grief is very intangible. There's nothing to pinpoint, there's nothing to touch, there's nothing to hold in your hands and show to people to see this is my problem. And there are no statistics also to give a mathematical quote of how big your problems are. But as you mentioned, it is it affects your heart very, very deeply. And when your heart and your mind are impacted, sometimes that also translates into physical issues, such as muscle pain, such as not remembering how to do things, such as not to get good sleep. And at the end of the day, all of that impacts your productivity and how you feel during the day. And
Yeah,
it
and
does
even
become
start
really
to
hard when you wake up in the
and
morning and you don't speak the language. The weather is something that you have never experienced. We grow up in a very sunny, very, very warm country, but when it's so cold and rainy and windy, that also brings about a lot of seasonal depression, as psychologists call it. The food is not yours. Whatever you put in your mouth does not bring any familiarity. When you walk on the streets, you look different, your skin color is different, your way of dressing is different, your way of moving and operating is different. It really feels like I am here in a place where I know no one and I don't belong.
but
And when you
Mavish, these
don't
are exactly the challenges which you really need to overcome or cope up with, whenever you're moving out. Now, number one. Number two, where you said how, there's been a brain drain. Unfortunately, I do not take it as a brain drain because imagine most of our income actually is dependent on remittances. ये वेले हैं, इनको काम करने की ज़रूरत है पाकिस्तानियों को, अल्लाह की कसम. इनको बाहर जाने दे, इनको काम करने दे. Number two. Number three, wherever we are to kind of speak about migratory grief, obviously it is there. But do you think there are phases of it, okay, because initially, you're in off, that you moved to the first world country. Then gradually, you see those challenges for all of these things that you mentioned, walking out on the street, nothing is similar, but the quality of the food over there is better. It might not taste same, माँ की हाथ का जैसा नहीं होगा, लेकिन जो यहाँ से जाता है वो सेहतमंद होके आ रहा है. So what are the phases of migratory grief?
Yeah. Well, I would say that, and when I talk to other people also who have migrated, I think as soon as you step foot into a new country, that loneliness steps in because you're thinking, okay, I'm on a flight and I'm moving to a first world country and everything will be lovely there. But as soon as you step foot, you realize, okay, there's nobody to help me. I have to manage on my own, set up my house on my own, learn all the skills that I didn't have to manage my home anymore, learn the language, learn the tax system. So as soon as that life begins, you realize, okay, this is not as easy, or there's not a one-step solution to this as I had thought. And I think it takes a lot of months for you to finally acknowledge that this is my new life. And if I don't do something to come to terms with it, nobody's coming to rescue me over here. And just like any other loss, even when you lose a loved one, people say that grief comes in phases. It's the same with migratory grief, that some days are great when you're doing nice at work, when there's a promotion, when you meet a nice person, you feel, okay, I'm settled. But you never know what triggers you, and the next day you are feeling sad again because you can't be back home in a second to see your parents when they are sick, to participate in a family event, be there for your sister when she's having a
Right.
baby. So it comes in waves. But like you also mentioned, you are your own savior. And if
Right.
you are not going to take steps to feel better about it, to construct a world for yourself in which you belong a little, it's never going to settle down. So you
Right.
have to take those steps.
I'm pretty sure, Mavish, there is no a defined timeline to overcome that. There no like in terms of the years or in terms of particular specific time to overcome that phase and navigate that phase. But once again, I think you brought a very important point, and that is the agony of mourning, that too in the exile or in the faraway land, especially if one of your family member, beloved family member passes away and you do not have that opportunity to immediately come back to your family support system. So, how to navigate that phase, navigating the agony of the mourning, because again, it is a very intangible sort of a feeling. You do not know what sort of emotions you are feeling. So, in that area, so in that particular phase, how do you recommend people, or how have you seen people, the immigrant stories, how have they deal with this particular phase in their life?
This, I think we live with a dread when we go to sleep at night and we put our phone on the side table, that when I wake up in the morning, I hope I'm not going to receive that call that I don't want to receive, that something has happened to your parent or to a loved one, and you can't go home. And it becomes really hard to deal with this. And there have been friends who have dealt with these losses, have dealt with these phone calls. And in such situations, I think the most helpful thing to do is to lean into your own community. And I always tell other people also, and also mention on my blog also, that when you move to a new country, your aim is to integrate, which means that you have your own community, but you also lean into the new culture and borrow whatever you like from the new culture, whatever serves you from the new culture. But you don't have to assimilate, which means completely rejecting your own community, your bonding with your home, with your heritage. And when you integrate but don't assimilate, that means that you are building that cushion of belonging as well around you, your own people, your own food, your own customs and traditions. And when you are experiencing that loss, only someone from your own home country can understand what it feels like. Somebody who lives in their own country will never understand what it feels like to be a
Exactly.
migrant.
And Mahvish, it actually brings us to another crossroad as well. Now, there are 2 or 3 things which I'm going to club. Number one, now imagine that we have seen people when they move to first world countries, the HR rules is so amazing that you can travel any day. So I've always recommended people that you should be so successful that whenever you feel like traveling or if there's an emergency that you're able to travel, number one. Number two, what about the grief of all of those families which were left behind by their fathers or parents, that they will come back one day and they have never ever showed up? I do know for a fact, it's so hard for me to even call him a friend. He got married over here, traveled abroad, and never came back again. I don't know what's happening with that poor girl now. So don't you think that we really need to kind of connect these two dots where we're talking about migratory grief, but what about the grief of the people who actually see their parents never coming back again? You know how parents moved to Saudi Arabia for the education of their children. They've been sending money back home, but they were never able to come back home.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is a question that I don't even know how to start thinking about. That those who are left behind and those who have left, they wait forever to see each other again.
True.
And again, I feel that those migrants who are able to visit, even if not every year, but every 2 years, you have to see that as a blessing, that, at least I am able to earn enough that I'm able to go back. I have my legal papers, I have my passports, and I have come through a legal route. And being an expat, of course, there are moments of loss, but again, you tune into the reason why you moved initially. You tune into the positives that you're getting, like you said, better quality food. When you're drinking milk, it's milk. The safety that your kids have, the independence that they can go anywhere by themselves and parents don't have to worry. Better jobs, better schooling, better healthcare system, better air quality, better water quality. So every time I feel lonely or sad, I use technology, pick up the phone, do a long video call with my mother, save up so I can visit home as much as possible. Instead of going on big trips across the world, I think we save up to just be able to come back home in the summer, stay
And I think,
connected.
I think, Mavish, you've highlighted a very important point, and that is, somehow technology can help you cope up with this migratory grief. But I think for a lot of people like you who are coming back to Pakistan, because we are developing a conversation a further step ahead in this migratory grief, and that is especially when you have children, when you have your husband, and you are torn between, dividing your holidays between your in-laws and between your family members. How to deal with that? That's a very difficult question, because there might be some elements within your family who are never going to be happy about how you divide your holidays, right? It's not just your, in-laws. It can be someone within your own family, because, they have their own lives. And I think we need to remember that you are coming on a holiday. The rest of the family, they're not on the holiday. They're already living here, right? So what are the etiquettes that you would want to give to the people out there of spending their holidays? And that should not become, a big ladai, because ammi ka alag mood bana hua hai, abu ka alag mood bana hua hai, wo ससुराल नहीं जाना, मैंने अपने घर मायके में जाना है, मायके में भाभीयों ने अलग मुंह बनाया हुआ है,
Husband
all
का
of
अलग
that.
बना हुआ है, yeah. There's a
Exactly.
pull and push.
Exactly. So instead of enjoying the holidays, and when you want to remain connected to your roots, it's just a chaos. And for your children who you want you to be connected to their roots, they just don't want to go with there anymore, because they don't getting the positive memories out there. It's just that they are witnessing a whole sort of a downgrade in the mood and environment there. How do you recommend that?
Alhamdulillah, I would say that me and my husband have really partnered to stay on the same page and also change the mindset of our own families. So as far as coming for us is concerned, what we do is that He stays with his parents and I stay with my parents. Luckily, both our homes are in the same city, which is Lahore. So रहते हैं और हमारे बक्से अपने अपने घरों में. We commute between each other's homes. कोई function है मिलना है, we commute. But we stay in our own home so that I can give my time to my parents who miss me, and he can give his time to his parents who miss him. And
I
our
think
kids
that's a
are
wonderful. Yeah, that's a wonderful solution. But since we're short on time, Mahvish, and the conversation is just so amazing, I think there are two more things. Number one, people who, there are two types of people. People who get their passports, residents, never come back again. So I don't know how they come over the migratory grief. But then there are people who have stayed away for a longer period of time, got their passports, got back. I do see for a fact that they are quieter now. They used to be very chirpy and, full of life and whatnot. But now after spending 10 or 15 years all by themselves, they need more space, number one. Number two, how do you think it is for countries like Pakistan where it's so hard to get visa of any country? Now imagine if I was working somewhere else and my parents were somewhere in Spain, so to get my parents over to my country would have been really easy. Now, I think for Pakistanis, it's always a challenge कि पता नहीं अब अम्मी अब्बू का वीज़ा लगेगा, मुझे कौन सा डॉक्यूमेंट जमा कराना है, नहीं कराना. Do you think that migratory grief for our people is more than the people in the rest of the world?
It is. It really is. And, I compare myself to a lot of my Indian friends who have that ease. कि, as soon as they fall sick or having a child or कोई भी मसला है, office में भी pressure ज़्यादा है, फौरन they are able to call their parents. And I look at them and me and my husband feel कि हमारी तो problem ही गुजर जाती है. तब तक तो हम लड़ के मर के किसी तरह खप के, we have arrived at a situation where we are fine. जब तक हमें embassy में appointment मिलती है. That really adds to our stress and our loneliness, that if anything happens, I cannot call my mom or my father or my sister to support me. And मतलब nightmares हमें तो आते हैं कि कुछ हो गया तो क्या होगा, हम दोनों ही हैं, सब हमारे कंधों पे है. So yes, I think Pakistanis and other countries which face visa difficulties, it really multiplies their migratory grief. Because parents can't come and visas are such a big issue.
But thank you so much, Mahvish, for being with us. It was lovely to be in conversation with you. It was a great conversation. It was a great topic brought to us by Hajra. And, thank you so much, Hajra, for, filling in life. I don't know why, but I think at the back of my head, you're actually preparing for yourself to kind of go and get over this grief,
I
right?
don't know, maybe but these conversations are, so much in tune nowadays, the grief, the loss of identity and how to channelize your grief. So maybe I clubbed it with that. But once again, there's a very interesting news, and that is that Oklahoma man boasts world's largest collection of the bricks. The family of the man from the Oklahoma left him surprised after they got him Guinness World Record for his collection of 8,882 different bricks. The family, a 87-year-old Clem, documented the bricks which he had collected for 40 years while he was away. Among his collection is a Roman brick from the period AD 100 and several others between the years 1870 and 1910. Clem was delighted to get the Guinness World Record certificate, and that's a very interesting sort of the news, that how world largest collection of the bricks, because I think that is also the part of the artistry or the art. So now we are going to move to another very interesting
language.
Topic. Absolutely, and that is the mother language, right? The mother tongue. And there's a lot of conversation that have been happened on that. But without further monopolizing our conversation, so why don't we go and introduce our guest, right? Shahzad?
Exactly. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined by Mr. NASEER MEMON over here to speak about, or on the occasion of International Mother Language Day. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum salam. Very good morning. Feeling great.
Sir, it's wonderful to have you over here.
Thank you.
And this year, it's the silver jubilee of the day, International Mother Language Day. Celebration of International Mother Language Day is actually pivotal, because imagine that our entire development, our nourishment, our communication, all sorts of things are actually based on that. How would you, first of all, highlight the importance of this day? Because I do, for a fact, I always share it with my audiences, 70 or more languages are being actually spoken in our country. A few of them are actually endangered. What are we doing to protect them?
Well, we have to do a lot. We have been doing something. I think as a country, as a nation, we have gone a little ahead. We have learned from our history. And this day has a lot of learning for us sitting in Pakistan, because it originated from this country. All over the world, this day is being now marked as a very significant day.
Right.
And I think Pakistan is a wonderful country having a tapestry of beautiful languages and cultures, right from the mountainous tops of the world to the oceans of Pakistan and the plains. As you said, that 70 odd number of languages are being spoken and being written in this country. I think this is a great opportunity to mark and celebrate the significance, the importance, and the great work that's being done in these languages.
Right. And sir, now let's unfold this conversation whenever we talk about a mother language, mother tongues, right? So within the context of Pakistan, there is a increasing concern that our generation, or generation alpha that we call it, they might be losing the essence of their mother tongue, because we are giving so much importance to English as a language that connects us to a more elitist concept, or gives us a more respect in this society. You know, how to make sure that we preserve the essence of you know, our mother tongues with our future generation.
And sir, I have an example of that in my household as well, because my second daughter does not speak Urdu.
All right, this is the story of
And I'm sorry about that.
I think
yeah.
this is a story of every other household,
Yeah,
right?
Many families in Punjabi families do not speak Punjabi. Their
Punjabi,
children
yeah.
don't speak. I go at their homes and speak with them in Punjabi and Saraiki and Sindhi as well. I think the first responsibility is on the parents, because as parents have to make sure that nobody stops us learning from many languages, and at the early age, the kid can learn so many languages. So in addition to your own mother language, you can learn several other languages, maybe English and Urdu, or Arabic, or Chinese maybe. But I think that the parents have a very important role to play. They should make sure that at their home, at their dining tables and their drawing rooms, they should converse with each other in their own mother languages.
Sir, but you know, I think that the debate really needs to be around whether we need to do this or not. Now imagine that this world, which we have been calling a global village, is literally now a global village, and you know, everybody's connected to each other. And why not have one language which everybody speaks? You know, why do you think that we have to preserve Punjabi? Why do you think we have to preserve Roman or French or any other language? Why don't you think that we need to be on the same page and speak the same language?
Well, it may be after 50 years it may occur automatically, but then the process has to lead it. But you look at all the developed countries in the world, they speak their own languages. China is, Japan, well, British and American people, they speak their own language. It's not that.
But even now, I think Chinese, you know, earlier, because even in France, you know, French people obviously never used to speak English, and they would never promote it. But now with tourism and so many billions and trillions of dollars coming, and everybody's like, okay, yaar, Angrezi bolo, inko to andar karo na, pehle baaki baad mein dekh lenge. So I think it's more about that. But sir, while we are at it, obviously you happen to be the chairman of Indus Cultural Forum. What tools are you utilizing to make sure that we actually preserve the mother languages over here within the country, and how do you think will it work over the year, probably 100 years? Next 100 years, do you think that Indus Cultural Forum would have done something where the language would have been preserved?
Well, in the last 10 years, we have done a lot, I would say. Every year, we organize the 3 days Mother Language and Literature Festival in Pakistan.
Tomorrow then, or today?
Starting this evening. And all of you are invited to join us.
Thank you so much, sir.
You will find more than 20 Pakistani languages being represented in different sessions. There are the books being launched in different languages of Pakistan. There's a poetry recitation. There are discussion forums. There's music in different languages. So everyone is speaking their own language. So next 3 days in Pakistan National Council of Arts, as you cross the corridors, in a given minute, you will perhaps hear 3 or 4 languages.
Yeah, that's good.
Right, but sir, whenever we talk about preservation of the language or multilingualism or preserving the diversity of the multicultural society, and in Pakistan, like you mentioned, that we have lots of mother languages or different languages that are flourishing, and some are even threatened. So what is the essential medium in which we can preserve that the medium of the language? And I think one of the important medium is that how it is transmitted from one generation to another generation, or how parents are speaking. So if they are speaking in Urdu, it is not certainly going to be transmitted to the kids, right? So what are other ways through which we can make sure that those languages are preserved?
I think society as well as the government both have to play the role. Governments have to encourage the institutions in the mother languages to flourish. Like in our Sindhi Language Authority, we have a plaque which is promoting Punjabi language. There's a Hindko Academy, there's a Bravi Academy, there's a Pashto Academy. So these institutions are publishing books in their own languages. They are organizing programs, and then the media has a very important role. PTV has so many languages, programs.
And we have Punjabi programs, Hindi programs.
Absolutely, absolutely. Then academic institutions. There are universities who have the languages schools. In LUMS, Lahore, there are languages school. There's an Allama Akbar University. Then I think provinces should do one more thing to teach the language at primary level. That's very important. That's the first institution for any kid is the primary school after the home. So if there is at least one subject, like in Sindhi, in Sindh, Sindhi is being taught as a medium since inception.
Exactly. And not just that, I think that the locals have actually done a great job. Now imagine that we never look at Sindhi that, you know, that this craft might be lost. We never look at Pashto that this craft might be lost. But I think when you look at Punjabi, I don't think a lot of people are actually speaking it. And in terms of preservation, I do believe that YouTube will actually be that platform which will be looked at probably 100 years later. Okay, yeah, you know, what language was spoken then, in what time, and what region. So I think it will actually contribute quite a lot. But the basic, simplest solution is teaching them in school, or probably parents conversing with their children in their mother language. But thank you so much, Mr. Naseer,
Thank you
for being with us. All the best for your literature festival, which
Hope
is
to see you there.
place. Inshallah. Inshallah, we have another festival taking place today, so I'm supposed to be hosting that.
All right.
So next time, you know, when you book me to host or Hajra to host, we will be there.
You will be our honorary host to speak in your own language. Come and connect the program.
ਭਾਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜ਼ੁਬਾਨ ਕਹੋਗੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਇਨਸ਼ਾਅੱਲਾ ਗੱਲ
ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸਿੰਧੀ में ॻाल्हाए सघां थो मैं
ਚਾਲ ਡਾੜੋ
सुठो हाल है सराइकी दी गल मार करनी तो भी हो सकदी है
खाड़ो तो वञे
भलो माहौल है सुठो ॾींहुं है
भलो माहौल सुठो ॾींहुं वश भले वा माता सरा मिना कवम दे so I think you know, we need parents like me and Naseer, MEMON, you know who can actually converse in multiple languages. But it's great to have you over here, sir. Thank you so much. And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you write to us at this morning at ptv.com.pk. You know, we're waiting to hear and listen to what you have to say about our show. It's been, mashallah, 13 years. So far, so good. Alhamdulillah, we're doing well. We're doing better than Urdu as well at times. So, shukar, alhamdulillah, to our entire team. I think it's Friday. Let's reflect upon that. So, may it be Namood Muslim Saab, may it be our producer, Sana, you know, Basit, Abbas, you know, everybody who actually works. People in the MCR, Rana Asim, Junaid, you know, even Iftikhar. I think everybody's been instrumental. And Hajra lately has been contributing immensely well. So I think big shout out to everybody that we've been doing great. Shukar, alhamdulillah. And look after yourselves, people. Please make sure that if you have people around, make sure that you buck them up. It's your responsibility. Until next time, look after yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Good morning. Jummah Mubarak. Thank you.